Hey guys, it's Marco again. I did my first Gnomeregan run in a pug group, and we absolutely smashed the raid with only one wipe on the last boss. We didn't have the optimal group in terms of DPS, but that doesn't mean that you will lack success. We had no feral druids or warriors, and I was the lone creature of the shadows surrounded by plate-equipped light warriors. I also didn't bring any DPS consumables, since I actually expected a lot of wipes, since I saw some people saying that they had a bunch of wipes, especially on the first boss. But that's what I get for not believing in my buddies. Since this was my first Gnomeregan clear, I looked up other rogues on Warcraft logs to scout their poison damage, and their poison damage was completely fine. I don't know if the bosses even have resistances. I could see that the poison mutilate build is doing better on solo targets, while it will only lose in terms of DPS on the first and penultimate boss compared to Blade Flurry as of the first clear. That's why I decided to go with the poison build, since we already had a lot of cleave in the raid, so we needed more solo target damage. Mind you, I had no clue what's going in the fights, since I didn't watch a single video, but I listened to the Discord comms. First boss is Grubbis, and you're bringing nature protection potions just because of him. This is mostly a tank and healer fight, and as a DPS you should just DPS the boss and avoid mechanics. You can also cleave the Basilisk, and that's why Blade Flurry should do better here. Before the boss comes, you're dealing with a bunch of ads. Later you get the green mist, and basically if the ads enter the green mist, they're just gonna die, so you actually don't need to DPS any of the ads, you're just DPSing the boss. And when the boss came, I didn't even expect that it was the boss, so I kinda phased out for a moment, but then I started DPSing. And also our paladin said that he has some aggro issues, so it's even better that I didn't start DPSing. Now the group did some smash, and I didn't know what does it do, but I think that you can actually stand and DPS there, you're not gonna lose too much HP from it. And now the gas cloud started following me, at least that's what my DBM said, and at the moment I didn't know what to do, so I wasn't even DPSing anything. Because I know that the green stuff is bad and the Grubbis is going to get like enraged when he's in the green stuff. So I finally go back on the boss and just start DPSing him normally. So just keep up your slice and dice 100% up and use Venom at 4 or 5 combo points. I don't know if Grubbis has some kind of a reset aggro mechanic, because I picked up the aggro there, so I immediately popped evasion, since I didn't know why does he have aggro on me, because I didn't do almost any damage. And after my evasion expired, I used vanish, so I reset my aggro. And as I said, this was completely badly played by me, since I could have DPS'd the boss a lot more and I shouldn't have been this scared, but yo, it was my first pull in Gnomeregan, I didn't know what to expect. And there we go, the boss is dead, and I actually ended up 3rd DPS without the feral druid, and that was quite surprising for me, since I didn't have I had like 70% uptime on the boss, maybe even 60%. Second boss is the Viscous Fallout boss, and he's supposed to be the easiest boss of the raid, and as you can see there are bindings of elementals spread across the whole room, since he has an ability Summon Irradiated Goo. And that ability spawns 3 ads, and those little ads try to get to the bindings, and if they get to the bindings they transform into elementals. So your priority as a DPS is to actually kill the goo so it doesn't come to the bindings, so they don't become elementals. And when they become elementals, you can't DPS them for a moment, and they just start spam casting Radiation Burn, which does a nasty amount of damage to the whole raid. And since I was the only person in the whole raid with the kick, all the kicking was up to me, so I really had to swap to the ads. Ideally you just want to stay on the boss, and maybe even go with the Blade Flurry build here if you really want to cleave the ads. You're gonna kill the goo before it even comes to the bindings and transforms into elementals. So we probably have done this fight quite a bit wrong, since every time he spawned goo, they were close to the bindings. But overall this fight has a really small amount of HP. It should be quite burstable. Also, we were kinda lazy and we didn't clear the whole room, so we accidentally pulled a bit more mobs in the room. So this whole fight was completely hectic. I still didn't even use my Tisselty or Vanish or anything, since I'm basically using Vanish if I need to reset my aggro, since I don't know what's happening. Ideally you're gonna use Vanish for your DPS. And here we had a call, let's just finish the boss, and that was pretty much it. And that's why I used my Tisselty, just to increase the DPS overall. And as you can see, I actually did 280 DPS, which was completely good, considering how hectic the fight looked. Third boss is the crowd favorite, Crowd Pummeler, and it was kind of a disappointing boss since there wasn't really anything going on. You just need to dodge one or two abilities, as you're gonna see, so you're basically just purely solo targeting him, and when he does this Gnomeregan smash, just move away from his frontal, that's it. And he does this ability quite often, so it can get annoying for the ranged DPS to dodge this. But at this moment I was expecting that there should definitely be something more in this fight, some enrage phase or something, and I was just waiting with it. So my combo for the burst mid-fight is to Vanish and then cast like a 5 stack in Venom, but I didn't put in Venom on my bars while stealthed, so that was my bad. So ideally you should Vanish at 5 stacks of combo points with like 80 energy, and then do in Venom with Cold Blood, do Mutilate, and then in Venom again, Mutilate, and just use Tisselty to refresh your energy, continue mutilating and envenoming. So your burst window is gonna be like really huge in those 6 seconds of the Master of Subtlety buff. And then like at 25% of HP or something, he starts to focus on one target or something, I really don't know, and there are cogs flying around the room, and that's pretty much it. There wasn't really anything special, and the Crowd Pummeler dropped, and we actually had no Feral Druid, so that's kinda sad, but I think that one of the Paladins got the two-handed mace. Fourth boss is again a boss on which you really don't have to do anything except dodge mechanics. Ranged DPSers actually have to do like two groups, and they have to move away. And the worst thing about being a melee DPS here is if you get a negative charge, you need to move away from your melee stack, so you're not gonna actually DPS the boss. Here, as on the example with the Paladin, he had to move away and not DPS the boss, and at one point the boss is gonna cast a knock, and the knock has like 30 seconds cooldown, and that's ideal for your Shadow Step, so when he knocks you can immediately just go back to him with your Shadow Step. But I think that there should be a way for when you get the debuff of the lighting that you can actually DPS the boss, like on one side, and on the other side the other melee DPSers are gonna be, that's going to be min-maxed in the future. But overall it's a completely uneventful boss, you're just doing as much DPS as you can, just solo targeting him, and that's pretty much it. As you can see, I'm actually first on the DPS meter, but that's That's mostly because ranged DPSers actually need to move a bit, and I actually don't need to move at all. I mean, he's going to knock me, but that's not gonna reduce my uptime on the boss, so this boss is quite good for the rogues. And now, one of the ranged DPSers couldn't soak the mechanic, and it was called that one of the melee DPSers goes out, and one of the paladins immediately went out. And now I got the magnetic pulse ability, I believe, and now I just need to move away from the raid and actually not DPS the boss, so that kinda sucks, and I got it 2 times in a row. So that's basically 10 seconds of not doing any damage to the boss. And the 3rd time in a row I got the magnetic pulse, so I was just super unlucky, and you can't really do anything about that. And sadly I went down the DPS meter, but it's okay, it doesn't matter. As long as there's loot, I'm fine. But if your ranged DPSers know what to do in this boss fight, the boss should just like roll over. And we got our first set piece, and it was the leggings. Mechanical Menagerie is the penultimate boss, and basically, again, as a DPS, as a melee DPS, you just need to avoid mechanics, and since I was the rogue, I had to focus on the squirrel and like interrupt the squirrel, because she was doing some barrage which would actually hit Widget Volley, and that would actually hit the whole ranged party. So my main goal here is to reduce the amount of damage going to the raid, so you just kick the squirrel. You have the sheep, and sheep constantly stuns the targets around her, and she walks around aimlessly around the room. So as a melee DPS, you should move away from the sheep, and ranged DPSer should focus the sheep. When it comes to the chicken, she just lays an egg, and that's an explosive egg, and DPSer should focus on it. But the egg has only 1000 HP, so actually as a rogue, it's not really optimal for you to do focus on the egg, because it's going to die just super quickly. Squirrel does 2 mechanics, so it has a cast which is going to do damage to the whole raid, to the whole ranged part of the raid, and you have to interrupt that as a rogue. And then she's gonna do some zone which is going to do damage, and you should just leave the zone. When it comes to the dragon, he just breathes fire, and you just need to be like aware that you shouldn't be in front of his breath, and that's pretty much it. And again, as I said, the fight is completely uneventful, at least for me, and all I had to do is to focus the squirrel and just kick her. Again, I was the only member of the raid who could actually kick, so if I missed the kick, the whole range group would take damage. As you can see, Rogue isn't doing too well on this fight, just because I didn't have any Blade Flurry, so I couldn't cleave any of the mobs. But this fight is actually ideal for your Blade Flurry. And it's quite of a long fight, so you're actually gonna get 2 Blade Flurries up for this fight. And now as I'm looking at my logs, this was the only fight on which I could see the big impact of poison resistance and even bleed resistance, because my Garrot and my poisons did a lot less damage than on the other fights.
Stop attacking. Interrupt. Breath incoming.
And the main goal of this fight is to kill all the 4 bosses at the same time, because if you kill one, he's going to start repairing themselves, and if they finish the cast, they're gonna be at full HP, so that's one way to actually wipe. So now everybody was at low HP, so there was a call like just finish everybody, and now you're gonna see when the scroll dies, she does self-repair. So you basically just need to kill them all relatively at the same time. Another pair of set legs dropped, and I actually got these ones. So yay me. And after the Menagerie dies, the last boss immediately comes, and we actually pulled the boss immediately, and like we basically wiped, but we didn't count that as a wipe. We're finally fighting the last boss, and this fight is completely uneventful for melee DPSers. Ranged DPSers actually have a task, because across the whole room there will be bombs which are spawning, and ranged DPSers need to go and press the button so they stop the spawning of the bombs. As a DPSer, as a melee DPSer, you just need to follow the boss, because tank will be kiting him at 1 point when he's casting a flamethrower, and just DPS it. And that's basically the whole first phase. And also this boss is a super long fight, so just use your cooldowns immediately at the start, and you're going to have them back on for the later phases. So don't be afraid to use any of the cooldowns. And this boss is completely a solo target boss fight, and his first phase ends when he gets to the 50% of the HP, his second phase also ends at that point, his third phase, and in the fourth phase you need to kill him completely. There we go, the first phase is done. I absolutely did nothing, I was just DPSing. And now you just wait for the little guy to get into his new mech. And this mechanical is the frost one. Again, you can't really do anything as a melee DPSer. This fight, I mean, the ranged DPSers are gonna press the buttons. The first phase is similar to the second phase. So he's gonna spawn bombs, Hunter is gonna take care of the bombs if any of them spawn, and they're just gonna press the button so they stop the spawning of the bombs. And this phase is kind of a DPS race, because you can't get too many stacks of this ice, because that reduces your movement speed, and at one point he's just gonna one-shot the whole raid if you have too many stacks of this frost thingy. So it's important that these frost bombs never come close to the melee, because if they explode in melee they're gonna apply a lot of these frost stacks. But overall I just need to say that I was quite happy with the rogue DPS, considering that we had no feral druid and we had no battle shot from the warrior. And only Shadow Priest was out DPSing me, which is kind of weird considering how bad they were in the first phase. And now one bomb actually came to us, and we immediately had a lot more stacks going on. But luckily this phase was finished, so now we're going to the poison phase. Now the poison phase is the only one which is eventful for rogues, because at certain points of the fight he's going to cast something without you seeing that he's casting something, and you need to interrupt him. It's actually showing on the DBM, and it's this toxic ventilation. And as you can see, I used my kick, and now he's basically killing the whole raid because I didn't have kick back. Because someone in Discord said, oh, kick him, and I was like, alright, I'm just gonna kick because... and yeah, nothing happened, so... This time I was like, okay, it's toxic ventilation, DBM is telling me everything, and now whenever he started casting, I immediately kicked, and like we would get like maybe one stack of the whole thing, and he would already stop casting the thing. So make sure that you have DBM, because it's really hard to see if the boss is actually doing that thing. I mean, you can see it by the whole raid's HP dropping. Bam, toxic ventilation, instant kick. Toxic ventilation is incoming, toxic ventilation is incoming, so I'm actually playing it safe in order that I have enough energy to instantly kick the boss. And that's it, the third phase is over, and now the fourth phase, you're gonna have the last mech, which has a bit less HP than the others, and he's the mech which does all the abilities. So every once in a while he's going to do one special ability from the previous phases. So he can either do the flamethrower, the coolant thing, which is going to do frost damage to all of you, or the radiation, which you need to kick. So you need to actually keep an eye out if you need to kick, or if you just don't need to do anything. And now his second ability was the flamethrower, so I still had no jobs to do. And now he's casting toxic ventilation, and I immediately interrupted the boss, so it was his third ability. But I guess they can go off like whenever. His fourth ability was the frost ability, and that ability is kinda underwhelming in my eyes. And he didn't get to cast his fifth ability, so I don't know if there's any pattern surrounding it. And when you kill the mechanical, it's still not over, the boss is still... you need to finish the little gnome. And there we go, the boss died, the chest set piece dropped, his quest item dropped, which rewards a necklace dropped, epic two-handed axe dropped. I actually got the chest, and this guy Ranipa got both the two-handed axe and the quest item, so he has an epic necklace as well. And that's the whole raid. I was honestly disappointed by the lack of things to do as a melee DPS, and to me this raid is way too easy. This was a pug group, and we deleted the raid on the third day of the phase, and we also had to level up. We didn't have the world buff, we didn't have any consumables, and as I already said, our party composition was quite bad for the DPS. So I can only imagine how this raid will be easy in like 2 weeks or something. For my future raids, if I do them in a pug, I will still go with this build. But if I'm going to log properly, I believe that I have to change the build depending on the boss. My prediction as of current moment is that we will go with Adrenaline Rush and Blade Flurry for Grubbis, Viscous Fallout, Crowd Pummeler and Mechanical Menagerie. These bosses either have cleave or they're super short fights, even at this moment. Overall, rogues are definitely not the best in this raid. As of current moment, melee hunters, warlocks, mages, priests, elemental shamans and balanced druids are ahead of us. Warriors are very close to us, but they definitely have the higher ceiling. I hope as the phase progresses and we get more gear that we will get better. Our biggest issue, at least for me, was the fact that we can't get a single upgrade in any of the current dungeons, which is insane, and all the other mentioned classes get a bunch of cool upgrades. That's it for the video. Make sure to hit that like button for more content. Thank you for watching and bye bye.